Hello and welcome to an India Today special broadcast from Taipei, Taiwan. I'm Gaurav Sawant. We are under 72 hours of compulsory quarantine at a quarantine center here in Taipei. But in this city, are war clouds gathering over Taiwan? That's the big question. There is a mass evacuation drill that is currently underway, that is being practiced to prepare for any eventuality. Is this because China has announced another set of war drills around Taiwan, especially after the second congressional visit? Over the course of the next half hour, we will tell you more about the gathering war clouds around Taiwan.
A missile test on the heels of China's provocative military drills in the Taiwan Strait. The United States has announced the test launch of the Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile. According to a US military statement, the test showed the readiness of American nuclear forces and provides confidence in the lethality and effectiveness of the nation's nuclear deterrent. The missile test comes even as China fumes over US Speaker Nancy Pelosi's recent visit to Taipei. First, China conducted military exercises surrounding Taiwan. Now it has slapped sanctions on pro-independence Taipei politicians and officials. China is getting support from Russia. President Vladimir Putin is drawing parallels between Nancy Pelosi's Taiwan visit and the United States' support for Ukraine.
The American adventure in relation to Taiwan is not just a trip of an individual irresponsible politician, but part of a purposeful, conscious US strategy to destabilize and chaotize the situation in the region and the world. A brazen demonstration of disrespect for the sovereignty of other countries and for its international obligations.
Putin has reiterated a statement from his past that the West is attempting to extend a NATO-like system to the Asia-Pacific region.
We also see that the collective West is seeking to extend its bloc system to the Asia-Pacific region, similarly to NATO in Europe.
Meanwhile, war clouds loom over Taiwan. It confirmed at least 17 Chinese aircraft and 5 warships breached Taiwan's defense zone. It claims to have responded with its own aircraft and land-based missile systems. With Gaurav Sawant in Taipei, Bureau Report, India Today.
Is the world looking at the fourth straight crisis? Why are we saying this? The United States of America has just test-fired the Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile, and this is one of the most powerful missiles. This missile hit a target almost 10,000 kilometers away very accurately, traveling at a speed of close to 15,000 miles per hour. Now, the Minuteman III is a US ICBM. Its test was postponed twice, once in the wake of the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the second time because China had started its exercises around Taiwan after Nancy Pelosi's visit and America did not want to send a wrong signal. But is America sending out a very clear signal to expansionist forces now that America is capable of launching nuclear missiles to protect and provide that nuclear umbrella to America and its allies?
China has been escalating temperatures over Taiwan for 2 weeks now, firing missiles across the defiant island, splashing into the sea not far from Taiwan, and imposing a simulated naval blockade in waters around it. But after days of aggressive military muscle flexing, including the use of live weapons dangerously close to Taiwan, a top US military commander has made the strongest comment yet on the situation. Vice Admiral Carl Thomas, commander of the US 7th Fleet, headquartered in Japan, has described China's belligerence as the gorilla in the room that must be contested. His words come just days after a US congressional delegation arrived in Taiwan in the wake of the high-profile visit by US Speaker Nancy Pelosi earlier this month. Twin visits that have kept Chinese heat high over Taiwan. Admiral Thomas has said, if we just allow that to happen and we don't contest that, that'll be the next norm. It's irresponsible to launch missiles over Taiwan into international waters where the shipping lanes, where free shipping operates. It is Admiral Thomas's fleet that would be a major player in the Western Pacific should things escalate into an actual battle at sea. The fleet has some of the US Navy's most formidable assets, including the USS Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier battle group and hundreds of other ocean-going assets. Admiral Thomas also says, if you don't challenge it, that is China, all of a sudden it can become just like the islands in the South China Sea have now become military outposts. They are now full-functioning military outposts that have missiles on them, large runways, hangars, radars, listening posts. The warning from Admiral Thomas is hugely significant, not just because Admiral Thomas is Washington's man in the Western Pacific Theater and the South China Sea, because it shows that there is a recognition that the world sitting on its hands could make things much worse and embolden China. But the big question remains, will the US now act to check China? Bureau Report, India Today.
China's military drills around Taiwan, especially firing missiles over Taiwan, is not just irresponsible, it's also unprofessional. Very strong words coming from a top US admiral, a 3-star general. The commander of the Japan-based 7th Fleet has said China's actions must not go uncontested, because should they go uncontested, it will set a new normal in this region, and that's unacceptable. Very, very clearly, a strong message coming from the United States of America. Remember, a short while back, even the White House had said that this is boiling the frog strategy that China is adopting. Each time it ups the ante and expects it to become the new normal. Will Taiwan permit it? Will the United States of America and democracies in the region permit this? That remains the big question.
A belligerent China reacting to the visit of US lawmakers to Taiwan. Chinese fighters and warships were back conducting menacing drills as Taipei welcomed more American politicians to the island. This time a team led by Democratic Senator Ed Markey. While it showed aggression in the skies around Taiwan and at sea, Beijing went on a diplomatic offensive as well, sanctioning 7 top Taiwanese politicians and officials, including Taipei's representative to Washington, Li Qianxiao.
中方再次敦促美方恪守一个中国原则和中美3个联合公报规定，慎重妥善处理涉台问题，停止在虚化、掏空、歪曲一个中国原则的错误道路上越走越远，以免对中美关系和台海和平稳定造成进一步损害。
China sees the visit by the US politicians and Taiwan's warm welcome to them as a rejection of its one China policy. The military exercises around Taiwan are Beijing's way of saying it will defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity come what may. Hours after the island's president met the US delegation, 30 Chinese aircraft and 5 naval vessels conducted military activity around Taiwan, and at least 15 Chinese fighters crossed the median line in the Taiwan Strait, on which there is a tacit understanding that no crossings should happen. China has intensified its show of military power ever since US Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan in the first week of August. A disgruntled China then launched an unprecedented live-fire military drill routine in 6 areas that practically encircle Taiwan.
China's constantly increasing the pressure and setting a new normal. The apprehension is this could actually lead to a conflict in the times ahead, and that is why Taiwan is taking all care to ensure that it protects its seas and its territory. Gaurav Sawant in Taipei, Taiwan for India Today. China has once again ramped up military drills around Taiwan. The Eastern Theater Command in China announced air and sea drills, joint operations, and these joint operations are aimed at sea control and territory control. Now, does this mean that China is taking its war games forward, trying to see how it can overwhelm Taiwan's defenses? Taiwan, of course, itself is also taking very effective countermeasures. Each time a Chinese aircraft violates the air defense identification zone, Taiwan launches its own fighter jets, activates its own air defense missile system, and Taiwan's navy also very active around the Taiwan Strait.
If China attacks Taiwan, it won't just be Taiwan defending, because Taiwan has very powerful allies. Because if attacked, the United States as well as Japan have committed to entering the battle and defending Taiwan. So let's get that out of the way. Taiwan is not alone in this fight, despite being a tiny little island. Third point, the Taiwan Strait is 128 kilometers at its narrowest point. So it's not like Taiwan is just next door. There's a fair bit of ocean to go across to reach Taiwan. Remember, Taiwan isn't just some ramshackle island. It has advanced air force and air defense assets, fighter aircraft, Patriot missiles, all kinds of very, very advanced weaponry supplied by the United States. The invading force, that is China in this case, will need to move most of its troops and occupying forces by sea if it wants to invade. The invading force would therefore be necessarily slow and therefore vulnerable to anti-ship attacks from Taiwan. And Taiwan is bristling with anti-ship weaponry. The cities and targets in Taiwan are majorly spread out. So it's not like there are very, very few targets that can be engaged. There are all the military bases and cities are hugely spread out, so it's difficult where to attack from. The western edge of Taiwan, that is the edge of Taiwan that faces China, is a very riverine area with cliffs and canals, and therefore it does not afford an opportune or optimum area to attack from, and that's the one that China will have to look at. There are very few beaches for possible Chinese amphibious landings on the island of Taiwan, so that's another big, big hurdle if China wants to, take Taiwan by force. There are many, apart from the main island of Taiwan, there are many small Taiwanese islets in the Taiwan Strait which have huge numbers of anti-ship and air defenses as well as radars which are constantly trained and looking at China and Chinese movements. It would be very difficult for the People's Liberation Army, Air Force, Navy to seize the ports and airstrips in Taiwan without simply destroying them. And once they destroy them, they will have no further use for them. So it's a huge paradox. If they want to take control of those crucial infrastructural points, the seaports and the airports, they can't do it without a fight. And with a fight, they'll be destroyed, and therefore they probably won't have any more use for them.
If Chinese military drills around the Taiwan Strait are a cause for concern and alarm in this part of the world, there is also concern over a Chinese spy ship in the Indian Ocean region. A Chinese spy ship, and China calls it a maritime research vessel, has docked at the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. India expressed concern, so did the United States of America. But despite India's concerns and objections raised by the United States, Sri Lanka, that's suffering under China's debt trap, was forced or compelled to permit China's ship to dock at Hambantota. But what's the message here? Is the dragon expanding its footprint in the Indian Ocean region? Look at the capabilities of the ship and why India is right in raising concern, but is not alarmed because there are effective countermeasures that India is also putting in place.
Bullying Taiwan with its missiles and fighter jets, needling India along the line of actual control in the Himalayas, and now China has turned to a mega sea espionage bid. its aim to spy on India's maritime activities. China has sent a surveillance ship Yuan Wang 5 to dock in Sri Lanka's Hambantota port, overlooking concerns raised by India.
I would like to reiterate that the marine scientific research conducted by research ship Yuan Wang 5 conforms to international law and international common practice and will not affect the security and economic interests of any country.
The Yuan Wang 5 is one of China's latest generation space tracking ships used to monitor satellites, rockets and intercontinental ballistic missile launches, operating in the garb of maritime research and surveillance. India is worried that the spy ship can snoop on its military installations and bases, making the Navy and nuclear bases in South India like Kalpakkam and Kudankulam vulnerable. Several ports in South India could also be under the snooping radar. The Chinese ship may also snoop on rocket and missile launch centers in Chandipur in the integrated test range off the east coast of Odisha.
Barely 24 hours after India gifted Sri Lanka a maritime reconnaissance and surveillance aircraft Dornier, Colombo permitted a Chinese spy ship to dock at Hambantota. Now this Chinese vessel is capable of mapping not just the ocean floor but also tracking movement of long-range missiles and satellites. In times of conflict, a cause for grave concern.
Sri Lanka, caught in a Chinese debt trap, has handed over a majority share of the Hambantota port with a 99-year lease to a Chinese merchant company in 2017.
No, we are not placating China. I don't think that is the case. We have simply asked India and the United States, who in fact, as was said before, raised some concerns. But then we asked, give us concrete reasons for the ship not to be in Hambantota. And there were no concrete reasons given. And under our conventions that we have signed up, the Maritime Convention, various other laws of the sea that we have signed up, we cannot refuse a ship which is asking for replenishments and docking in Sri Lanka. So,
India has asserted that it will take all measures to shield its installations from the snooping eyes of the Chinese vessel.
Sri Lanka once again permitted them to dock this ship at Hambantota, but assured the government of India and the Americans that while the ship is docked there, they will not permit them to undertake any research activity whatsoever. They are there only for refuel. Only time will tell what was the actual purpose for which they stayed there.
India continues to court Sri Lanka by handing over maritime assets, recently giving a Dornier 228 maritime patrol and reconnaissance aircraft to Lanka to reaffirm bilateral security ties. With Gaurav Sawant in Taipei, Taiwan, Bureau Report, India Today.
Some analysts, of course, have argued that it's not if, but when will China actually try and take Taiwan, even if by force. Some analysts say that the initial projection of trying to do this in the next 20 to 30 years has been cut short by Chinese President Xi Jinping. After his October-November Congress for re-election, he may try and do it in the next 18 to 24 months. Now, India Today's news director Rahul Kanwal spoke to Steve Sang, one of the biggest authorities on China and this region, to find out whether there was a genuine possibility of that nightmarish scenario of China trying to take Taiwan by force. What will it be like? We bring you this special conversation.
We're seeing multiple military maneuvers by the Chinese Navy, by the Chinese Air Force around Taiwan. From what you've seen so far sitting in London, what do you make of the kind of military strategy that we've seen playing itself out over the past few days? Is China just flexing its muscles, or do you think it's preparing for war?
I think at this stage, China is flexing its muscle. China is sending a clear warning to Taiwan and to the United States that China will be able to sustain a blockade of Taiwan and do other actions that could result in China taking Taiwan. But the reality is that at the moment, they are not yet confident that they have the necessary capacities to do so. Their preferred solution is that by demonstrating China has overwhelming military superiority, they will be able to force the government in Taipei to negotiate for peace, which from their perspective is reunification with China, and that will basically remove the problem. And short of that, they will be launching surgical strikes, a kind of decapitation operation to take out Taiwan's leadership and again force Taiwan to capitulate. A full-scale amphibious assault would be the last option.
How do you think Taiwan is likely to react to these military maneuvers? Initially, after Speaker Pelosi went, Taiwan issued condemnation but didn't react militarily when Chinese fighter jets crossed over the median line. Now Taiwan seems to be issuing stronger statements. Do you think they'll just lie low and hope that, that China backs down? Or how do you see militarily Taiwan react to these Chinese military maneuvers?
I think the Taiwanese government has responded in a very measured and responsible way. Now, the reality is that the Chinese government miscalculated. They launched the military exercises and have to be so aggressive because their early warning to the United States to deter Pelosi from visiting Taiwan totally failed. They should have known that it could never have worked. But having failed to deter Pelosi to visit Taiwan, Xi Jinping cannot afford to appear soft on Taiwan or on the Americans, and therefore needs to project power in such an aggressive way. So in this context, if the Taiwanese have responded either very aggressively with their military deployment or dismiss the Chinese military exercise as really nothing to see here, then it will get Xi Jinping to have to redouble his efforts and get even more aggressive. So by playing it down and say that we are concerned, but not reacting too much, make it possible for Xi Jinping not to have to escalate further.
Will democracies across the world unite to checkmate expansionist forces? India Today will continue to report from Taipei, Taiwan, from ground zero over the course of the next several days. But that is all I have for you on this special broadcast from the quarantine center in Taipei. Many thanks for watching. News and updates continue on India Today. Stay with us.